This is the first video to accompany my NI Week 2015 presentation, Don't Panic, a LabVIEW Developer's Guide to Teststand, Technical Session 6421. This video is entitled The VI. So I'm going to describe one outcome when LabVIEW developers move their test solutions to Teststand. There are a couple of outcomes that we're going to go into in subsequent videos. The first one is that our customer has perhaps had a significant investment in LabVIEW already. They've developed several LabVIEW based test solutions and for whatever reason are considering moving to Teststand. Typically this arises because they have been asked to add additional testing or perhaps add some conditional branching into the testing that's making it significantly more complex. For example, adding diagnostic testing on failure or performing additional testing if the results of a subsequent test are within a certain percentage number of percentage points of the limit perhaps, or perhaps they've just simply been asked to add some reporting requirements into their LabVIEW based solution, such as generating XML reports or writing the test results out to a database. All of those things, whilst achievable in LabVIEW, significantly add to the complexity of our LabVIEW based tests, and often it's in circumstances like this that we consider Teststand, or perhaps our local friendly NI field sales engineer has recommended that we consider Teststand because it offers several of those things, such as the reporting, such as the database storage. It offers them out of the box, so perhaps that's why we're considering it. So typically what we've got is a LabVIEW based test. I've got a very simple example here, but it is kind of representative of what we see. We've got a LabVIEW VI, and inside that VI we're making calls to a couple of different devices. We're making calls to a thermal chamber, so we're performing some kind of temperature adjustment at a given ramp rate, and then when we get to temperature we then perform a test. In this instance we're just performing a simple self-test on an amplifier type device, but it could be a more complex functional test where we're actually measuring parametric information and returning it. In this case we're just performing a self-test and returning the result of the self-test back to the operator via the LabVIEW user interface. So let's go ahead and run that and see what's happening. So we can see that we're displaying some information on the front panel to at least let our operator know what is happening right now. It's displaying the current temperature, showing us that we're approaching that target set point of 75 degrees, and now we're performing the self-test. So it told us during the test operation what activity was being performed and then returned the result back to the LabVIEW interface, the operator interface. So in our kind of fictional situation now, perhaps a line manager has asked for additional reporting to be provided. He wants a HTML type report, for example, or he wants some database storage. So we've decided to investigate the use of Teststand in order to add this functionality. But like a lot of customers, we're quite wary of throwing away the investment that we have in our existing LabVIEW based test. After all, we've got a test that does the things that we need it to do and is known to be working. It's a proven test. We just need to add that reporting. So what's very tempting, and what we see a lot of customers do, is that they insert a new test. Let's select pass-fail test into Teststand. Let's call this thing the DUT self-test, and they specify the entire LabVIEW module that we've just seen executing. They specify that as the source module, the module to provide that test, and they simply wire the Boolean output of that test to be the result of the test in Teststand. And there we go. So if we make a change, let's save that sequence file now to the desktop. DUT self-test, we'll save that. Let's close our original VI. So now we've got the same code effectively implemented in Teststand. So let's go ahead and execute. Because this is Teststand, we get a few extra things out of the box. So it's going to go ahead and ask us for the serial number of the device under test. That's a neat little addition that perhaps we would have to code otherwise. We say OK. Unfortunately though now, because we've implemented all of our code in a single step, Test stand doesn't know to display any current activity to the user interface. It doesn't respect the modality of any of our LabVIEW windows that we were previously displaying. So for a few minutes while the test is running, the operator really has no indication of what's actually going on. We've got no granularity at all. We can just see that we're performing a single step called DUT self-test, and the amount of information being returned to the operator at this point is quite minimal. Our test sequence failed, so we get this nice pop-up telling us that it failed, and then we don't want to test any more units. We get these nice UT reports out of the box. So we got some benefit to implementing our test in test stand. We got this nice report format straight away out of the box, but we lost some of the information that we were previously seeing as the test was executing. Now this is a rather simplistic example. I've seen certain examples where we've had a single step in test stand, and then sat behind that you have a hierarchy of several thousand VIs all being called from a single step in test stand, and that test was taking up to 5 or 6 hours to actually complete, during which time the operator was not aware of any errors that were occurring or the test status. So effectively the operator had to sit there for 5 or 6 hours until the result was returned in order for them to know how the device was performing. So obviously not a great deal of interaction with the testing personnel. So yep, this is one possible outcome that we often see, where all of the code is implemented in a single test step in test stand and implemented in a single VI. Obviously not desirable. Let's watch the other videos to see the other possible outcomes.